So, I live alone in a bad neighborhood just outside of the city. At this point, I have been living there for maybe 3 years with no incident. Well, there were several shootings on my street, but no one shot at me, so no incident, I guess. I'm the kind of person who can't sit still for very long, so I find myself standing or pacing a lot. On this particular night, maybe at about 2 a.m., I was pacing while reading a textbook to prepare for an upcoming test at my university. I stopped pacing for a little and just stood near my front door to read. That's when I heard my doorknob turn. For some reason, though I nearly shit myself, I was able to calmly look down at my deadbolt to confirm it was locked. It was, luckily. I looked through the peephole to see who was trying to come in, but no one was standing there. Obviously, this was confusing. I'm not superstitious or a believer in the supernatural, but I guess I'm pretty dumb because my first thought was, is there a ghost trying to break into my house? Thankfully, that gave way to a more logical thought of maybe they're going around back. So I quickly moved to the back door to make sure it was locked. It was. But then my front doorknob turned again. I tiptoe ran to the front door. At this point, my heart is pounding. My dog is looking at me with major concern in his eyes. I look through the front peephole again, but there's still no one there. That's when I hear a small knock on my door, as I'm looking through the peephole. Then a small child's voice said, "Let me in." Silence. "Let me in." I'm still looking through the peephole, while covering my mouth with my hands to make my breathing quieter. Through the peephole, I see a small 3-year-oldish girl walking to the edge of my porch and looking to my bushes. She nods, then says okay in what I think was supposed to be a whisper. She walks closer to the door again, and I lose sight of her in the peephole. She tries the handle again, then knocks and says, "Please help me." My uncle is a cop, so I heard about these people using children as a way to get people to open their door before attacking them. So I'm pretty sure that's what's happening at this point. I wasn't sure how to handle this situation, so I just pretended to talk into a phone and call the police. "Hi, I think someone is trying to break into my apartment." "Yeah, here's my address. Yeah, I'll stay on the line." I then saw a shadow emerge from my bushes. Thankfully, they scooped the kid and ran off. There were 2 people and the kid. People who tried to break into my apartment to rob or kill me. Let's not meet. I apologize in advance since I'm not a good writer, but I'll do my best to share my experience. To better paint the picture, here's a description of myself at the time of the incident, which was 3 years ago. I was 5'5", a 26-year-old woman, medium-length bleach blonde hair. I was curvy, 175 pounds, and I was wearing black high-waisted tights and a pink crop top. 3 years ago, I was walking home late at night from my friend's house. It was dark, and at the time I lived in a rough part of a large city. I've had many sketchy situations that I've gotten myself out of, so I guess I felt sort of invincible, like nothing truly scary could happen to me. When I walk alone, I always stay very alert and aware of my surroundings for my own safety just in case. About halfway home, and roughly 10 minutes to my apartment, I noticed a van started tailing me. I was used to this since in my city it's very common for a young woman in a rough area to get propositioned for pleasure. It's embarrassing how desensitized to this I was. I did my usual and crossed the street so that I would be walking on the opposite side of traffic. I wasn't scared, just annoyed. The van then turned down a side street and back on the road I was. Then they pulled up to me. At this point, I still wasn't scared. Again, this has happened so many times and it never mattered if I was wearing something that showed more skin or if I was wearing a winter coat zipped from just below my chin all the way down to my ankles. That area is notorious for that type of activity. I decided to be firm and told the person sternly I am not interested. I noticed there were 2 men in the van. They looked almost identical and may have been twins or brothers. Both men had a very, very dark complexion, dark eyes, and short dark hair. The van didn't move, I was super annoyed and crossed the street again to get away. At this point, I figured this would be enough for them to stop following me, but they didn't. They kept circling back every time I crossed the road. I've never had to put that much effort into getting a pervert to leave me alone, so that's when I started feeling unsafe. They zipped by me at the speed traffic was flowing in, and I yelled for them to back off. I thought it finally worked. It had been 3 minutes, and I hadn't seen the van, so I thought I was in the clear. Just in case, I pulled out my phone and was getting ready to call my sister that I lived with. But the van pulled up to me very quickly, and before I could even blink, one of the men jumped out of the van, opened the back door, and approached me quickly in an aggressive manner, as if he was about to scoop me up and throw me into the vehicle. The traffic in that area is very inconsistent. It was dead, and I imagine that's what they were waiting for. Just as the man was about to place his hands on me, I tilted my phone and said, "You are being filmed in my live video chat. I gave my friends your license plate number, and the police have been notified." I was very scared, but I didn't let it show. I tried to stay as calm as I could. The man paused like he was considering if I was bluffing or telling the truth, so I tilted my phone more as if to give the fake audience a better look at him. He jumped into the van and they both sped off. I have never been the same since that night. I'm afraid of walking alone now, even in the daytime. Please stay safe out there. I hope karma finds them soon. When I was 14, I was asked to babysit my 3 younger cousins, aged 8, 4, and 1, in an extremely rural/mountainous part of Pennsylvania. My aunt and uncle had a wedding to go to over an hour away and wouldn't be back until very late. Their house was situated on a steep mountainside. Their back deck had a 15-foot drop onto a rocky hill below leading down to a river. Their closest neighbors were about a half-mile away, and the closest main road was about a mile away, and at night there were no lights to be seen anywhere around them. Basically, it was in the middle of nowhere, and you would have to know where you were going to get there. You don't just accidentally end up there. My aunt and uncle left us with some pizza and their cell phone number next to their landline. This was the early 2000s, and I didn't have a cell phone, but even if I did, I wouldn't get reception there anyways. And then they headed out. The baby was already asleep. The 4-year-old wasn't feeling well and was quietly watching TV in the living room as he dozed off, and the 8-year-old was playing Guitar Hero with me up on the loft. The loft overlooked the living room to the left, where I could keep an eye on the 4-year-old, and there was a huge window that overlooked the driveway to the right. This description of the driveway is important to the story. The road that led to their house ran straight into their forked driveway. It was a dead-end road, and the house was as far as you could go. Go to the left of the driveway. There's a large open carport, and that's where my aunt and uncle and anyone who ever visited parked. The right driveway led down a very short but very steep hill to a large leveled out area and ended against the garage door that opened up to the basement of our house. It was never used as a garage, but served as my uncle's man cave, where he spent most of his time. Right beside the garage door, there was a normal door with a window so you could see right in. But this driveway was used exclusively by the kids as a play area because it was the only flat yard-like area on the property. And being on a mountainside, there isn't much room to safely play otherwise. No cars ever drove down there, ever. There were too many toys and bikes in the way, and friends and family knew this. It was about 10 p.m., pitch black outside. No moon to illuminate the area either. My cousin and I were still playing Guitar Hero when headlights caught the corner of my eye. And not my aunt's minivan headlights. Huge truck headlights, with those roof lights you often see on Jeeps and other off-road trucks. Not only that, the truck was going down the right driveway, the kids' play area. This was not my aunt and uncle, and this was not anyone they knew. Panic and dread filled my body. I was a small teenage girl, alone in an isolated house on a mountain at night, with 3 children in my care. In a terrified voice, I asked my cousin, "Who is that? Jake, do you know who that truck is?" And then he looked panicked. "No, I've never seen that truck before," he replied. I quickly ushered him downstairs, still unsure what to do. but the two little ones were sleeping down there, and I wanted to make sure they were safe. I checked on the baby and then grabbed the phone to call 911. Then I started to hear the metal garage door being shaken violently. No one ever opened that garage door. More panic fills me. I hear them trying the door beside it, the metal doorknob jiggling. No one was actually knocking. It's not like they were checking to see if my uncle was down there. Plus, the lights were out. It was dark down there. They knew no one was down there. They were definitely breaking in. The door leading to the basement steps was right next to the phone, so I could clearly hear all of this going on. I quickly turned the little lock on the doorknob just in case they did make it into the basement. My heart was practically jumping out of my chest. I'm talking to the 911 dispatcher as my 8-year-old cousin clings to my arm. The operator is calm and trying to calm me, but I knew it would be at least 30 minutes until a police officer could get up there. Assuming they didn't get totally lost on this mountainside in the pitch dark. I just kept thinking, we're dead. We are dead. This is how I die. The operator asked for the number my aunt and uncle left me so she could have another dispatcher call them to let them know the situation. I turned around to grab the paper with the number on it, and to my absolute horror, I see a man peering in the large sliding glass door. A huge, burly, what had to have been 6'4" man with long, scraggly red hair and a big, red, brushy beard. And what made it worse, he was grinning at me. Grinning in a way that still scares me to this day. Meaning I had to have looked like a terrified deer in the headlights. I was shaking so hard I could barely hold the phone. There was a second man behind him I couldn't see as well. I have no idea what he looked like, but he was equally as tall, but a bit more lanky than the larger man at the sliding glass door. I screamed, "Oh God, they're here!" And before the 911 operator could say anything, my 8-year-old cousin goes, "Mr. Jim?" His voice was very confused. It wasn't like my cousin was happy or even relieved to see him. I asked, "You know who that is?" But before my cousin can answer, I turn my attention to the man at the door. "I'm on the phone with the police," I shouted. I'm grateful that he didn't try that door, because I don't think it was locked. The man stared at me hard for a moment, eyebrows furrowed, like deciding what he wanted to do next. But he then just backed away into the darkness. What seemed like an eternity later, I saw the truck lights back out of the driveway, and then back down the road until they disappeared. I was still scared shitless, and so was my cousin. He had only met the guy a few times, an acquaintance of his dad. It wasn't like a close family friend, and obviously, because again, he went down the wrong driveway, visitors never go down that driveway. The 911 operator asked for a description of the man, then told me they'd gotten in touch with my aunt and uncle, and they were on their way home. She stayed on the phone with me until police officers showed up a bit later to make sure that the men were gone, and then they stayed with us until my aunt and uncle got home so they could ask some more questions. My uncle was furious, not at me for calling them home early, but at this Mr. Jim guy. He muttered something like, "I'm gonna kill him." My aunt was mad at my uncle and told him to tell Jim to never come back. I didn't know it at the time, but my uncle had a drug problem. I don't know what Mr. Jim or his accomplice were doing, or what they would have done if I wasn't on the phone with the police, but that grin was not a friendly one. It was sinister. And again, he also had to have known my uncle was not there because the basement was dark. He would have seen through the window of the basement door. He also tried lifting the garage door, something not even my uncle did. He intended to break into the basement. That much is clear to me. There was no other explanation. I never did babysit for them again, and I don't think I ever even went back up there because not long after, my aunt divorced my uncle and moved out. I hope to never see Mr. Jim again.